Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. This week, Mining Weekly editor Martin Creamer discusses Niron Metals looking to Guinea's iron ore, Sibanye-Stillwater's Upper Group 2 performance, and Barrick's merger with Newmont. Welcome, Martin.
Hi, Sashni.
Now, Niron Metals is excited about the iron ore prospect in Guinea.
Yes, and you look at the people who are behind Niron and you see Mick Davis and Vardashine, people we know from this part of the world. Mick Davis, he had a long history in energy here with Eskom, and then he went into Gencor, created Billiton, moved then to Xstrata, had major acquisitions, and now is again looking to enter as a miner in Africa. And you see Vardashine was big in diamonds with De Beers, now also involved in this company. So some big names. And the area they're looking at is Guinea. Now that's always been terribly troublesome. You'd have big companies go in there. They'd have to give big proposals because the president there was anxious to have infrastructure built. I can remember that Rio Tinto were planning to build a lengthy rail line. They were even going to have tunneling going through mountains. They had linked up with a Chinese company that was going to offer them infrastructure. They were going to clean up the port and make sure that that iron ore that they were going to develop could be exported from Guinea itself, which was what the presidency wanted at the time. And when you look at that asset, the Simandou asset, and the one that they're looking at now, the Zagota to start off with, these are very good assets in iron ore. And when one goes to Pilbara in Australia, that is the great iron ore country. And often they say, well, look, to probably outdo that. As the Pilbara sort of declines, you might have this coming in, Guinea. And so there's this renewed hope that Mick Davis with Niron will come back to the area and start off with Zagota, but probably eventually move into the bigger area of Simandou, which is really a massive big asset and endowment. And initially they say, well, they'll export via the next door Liberia. But perhaps they'll also resurrect that idea of the port in Guinea itself, but there's still a lot of water to run under the bridge, and I think there were so many court cases and counter court cases there that now seem to be settled through top line intervention. They could bring Niron in. It would have a good clean track record. It would do what it promised, and it's already talking of appealing to all stakeholders, not being narrow in the mining of Africa, making sure that the people also benefit. So hopefully something good will come out of this Niron Metals interest in Guinea.
And Sibanye-Stillwater's Upper Group 2 reef has been extremely beneficial for the company.
Yes, Upper Group 2 reef, the UG2 reef, it was the poor cousin. People always said Merensky, that's where you get your value, and then they took a long time to actually go into the UG2 reef. But as it happens now, that can really give you the returns. So that poor cousin has the assets of palladium richness and rhodium richness, and that's where the prices are spiking at the moment. The price of platinum, where you think, well, Merensky Reef, you're going to get platinum, is not good, and hasn't been good for some time, whereas the price of rhodium has just rocketed. I mean, I think as they said there, this is the untold story of how you've really benefited in platinum, because none of the platinum producers now refer to being platinum miners. They all say platinum group miners because of the group metal that you get when you mine platinum. And normally when you mine on the western limb, you platinum rich, and on the eastern limb palladium and rhodium rich. But there's also that UG2 on the western side. And you can see that these assets that have been taken over by Sibanye-Stillwater, they're yielding good results from the palladium and the rhodium inside that UG2, with the benefit from chrome. A lot of them talk chrome now, where it helps the business because of the chrome richness. At some stages it was difficult to actually process that UG2, and we used to see efforts that were unsuccessful, particularly with the chrome part of that ore body. But that is all behind us now, and as you have a demand for palladium, which is really, I think, maybe reaching a point where you might have to substitute platinum at some stage because there's just not enough of it. You've also got this corollary running with it, rhodium, which takes the NOx out of the air, the nitrogen oxide, and which is being really demanded all over the world at the moment, that you get that NOx out. So that price has gone to a high level. I know there was some concern about the rhodium price. Is it going too high? You know, you don't want these prices to go too high, but people are saying now there's just no way they can get around it, and they're sure rhodium will always feature, and that means that Upper Group 2 becomes recognized rather than being the poor cousin. And that's great for the country, because you don't want to leave anything behind. You want to make sure that all your ore bodies are properly mined, and this now is giving an opportunity with the richness of palladium and rhodium in the UG2.
And Barrick's proposed merger with Newmont will be unprecedented for value creation.
This is I didn't expect this to come so quickly. I can remember when Gencor, the old Gencor in South Africa, became Billiton, and then it became BHP Billiton. And under Brian Gilbertson, he wanted to quickly make another acquisition. He wanted to acquire Rio Tinto. And the Australians weren't happy with that because it didn't suit them. And he exited the company rather quickly. But if you look back now, that was the correct decision. You know, once you had created this big diversified mining company, you could actually consolidate over a much bigger area, which would have been fantastic for a lot of shareholders. It was it didn't go through. Now we have a situation where Barrick merged with Randgold Resources. They brought in Dr. Mark Bristow, and he will look after the company, whereas the executive chairman will look after the board, and he was moving very, very fast, and you could see him going to all the assets and looking at which was a tier one, which was not a tier one, making sure this was a tier one company. And one thought that he would be acquiring smaller but tier one assets around the world. That seemed to be the mood. And then all of a sudden we wake up to the strategy of, no, we want to merge with Newmont. So this would be massive consolidation across the gold mining industry, which needs consolidation because it's been doing so badly. And you know, from the earliest days, they used to say, look, this needs to be consolidated. This business needs to be consolidated. You can't have little gold mines all over the place. Bring them together, because this is the only way we're going to have to get proper value for our shareholders. And we saw how neglect of that hurt the shareholders very, very badly. And now, wow, they popped up. You know, Barrick wants to merge and come in with Newmont, and the introduction of Dr. Mark Bristow is very interesting, because I mean, his knowledge of geology is unbelievable, but he's also developed in a way with Randgold Resources where he didn't acquire anything. That wasn't. He was based on, you know, discovery and development. That's how he built his asset. Now, all of a sudden, he's become the biggest M&A man in gold, where he wants to actually bring Barrick and Newmont together. They're already vying to be the biggest gold mining company in the world. Can you imagine if they come together? This is going to be huge. Of course, at this stage, Newmont is looking a little bit reluctant, and they're saying, well, he's pushing all the reward and none of the risk. He's not telling us about the risk. But you can see how excited he is about, I'm talking to Dr. Mark Bristow, about Nevada. You know, he's referring to it as what our Witwatersrand gold here was in the 1970s, and how there's such a lot of scope for synergistic activity there, that if the two companies to come together, they will streak to the top as the biggest gold mining company. And it's going to be interesting to see how the shareholders react.
Thanks for speaking with us, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Sashni.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on the local and global mining industries.